Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
The Stock Movers Podcast, your roundup of companies making moves in the stock market, harnessing the power of Bloomberg data.
I'm Tim Stenevec, along with Carol Masser. Let's take a look at some stocks on the move today. With us is Bloomberg News equities reporter Alexandra Semenova. Alex, what's on your radar today?
Hey guys, always great to be on with you. We got to, of course, start with Tesla. We're all watching that stock after the very public blow-up between CEO Elon Musk and President Donald Trump last week. It's actually up a little bit today. This comes even as it got two downgrades from firms on Wall Street. That's Baird and Argus Research. Of course, investors have been worried about the reputational damage that this political fallout has done for the company, and they were also worried about the fact that it might not deliver on its robo-taxi promises. Obviously, this is coming at a very difficult time for Tesla. Shares are down about 27% in 2025, making it the weakest performer of the so-called Magnificent Seven stocks. And they had, of course, rallied after the election and then peaked in December. And obviously, it's been a really difficult time for the company. Elon Musk had focused so much on his political endeavors in the White House and then had this very public fallout. The stock fell 14%. On Thursday was its worst day since 2023. And obviously now Wall Street is just trying to assess the long-term damage.
Yeah, what I find notable about this, oftentimes, Alex, when you see downgrades or double downgrades such as this, you'll see the stock react accordingly. It seems like a lot of this was baked into the stock, given that shares fell, close to 15% just last week. So it's almost like in this case, the analysts are catching up.
Yeah, sometimes, analyst downgrades are a contrarian indicator, Tim. And obviously, when we saw the kind of sell-off that we did, there are still people who are big believers in this company and who saw it as an opportunity to buy in. One of my sources, Dave Mazza, he's the CEO of Round Hill Investments, described it really well. Companies like Tesla, they don't trade on fundamentals, obviously. They trade on something he called a dream premium. And I think that's kind of what's happening here.
Safe to say one of the big dream, but maybe also reality premiums is all things with AI. And that leads us to Meta. You are watching Meta today, and it definitely has an AI connection here.
Yeah, we got to talk about this incredible scoop by our Bloomberg reporters here. Meta is in talks to make a multi-billion-dollar deal with startup Scale AI. It could exceed $10 billion in value. This is, of course, according to sources familiar with the discussions who chose not to be identified due to their proximity to the deal. And basically, Scale AI provides data labeling services. It helps companies train their machine learning models. So really, really big investment here for Meta. It also works with customers like Microsoft and OpenAI. The stock is actually flat today, not big moves across the equity market, so not reacting very much.
Yeah, this is a fascinating write-up by our team, including Seth Figerman and Rachel Metz. 28-year-old AI executive Alexander Wang, he went to Capitol Hill to tell policymakers what they needed to do to maintain U.S. dominance. And now Meta is set to throw, Carol, billions of dollars at this startup. It's pretty remarkable to see.
Yeah, they talk about, how they've evolved their business, increasingly relying on high-paid contractors with graduate degrees to improve AI systems, and has deepened its relationship with the U.S. government through defense deals. So Alex giving us some context as well. But it's interesting to see a very established company like Meta, but the AI grab, it's pretty intense. And when we're talking about maybe as much as $10 billion, that's some serious money. Let's get to, I think it's the number one gainer. It has been at points during the day in the S&P 500, the NASDAQ 100. Warner Brothers Discovery. You're watching that one as well, Alex.
Yeah, this was some interesting news today. It is actually splitting into two independent companies, Global Networks and Streaming and Studios. Global Networks will include entertainment, sports, and cable television brands such as CNN, TNT, and TBS. And it'll hold a 20% stake in Streaming and Studios. And the separation is actually expected to be completed by mid-2026, allowing each company to pursue its own investment deals and kind of operate as separate entities. And this was meant to unshackle, its fast-growing streaming business from the legacy cable networks that perhaps aren't doing as well. Obviously, there's this there's been this big move into streaming services, while cable news isn't necessarily as popular anymore. And analysts were generally positive on this deal. Benchmark said it was an aggressive buyer on this news. Firms like KeyBank Capital Markets and Vital Knowledge also said it was positive, but the details of the deal aren't necessarily clear yet. So that's something to watch for here.
I don't know. I'm old enough to remember when bigger was better just a few years ago. And then now you have a company such as Comcast spinning off its media divisions into a couple different companies and figuring out what that's going to look like, Alex. I mean, it seems to me, and we heard Paul Sweeney talk about this earlier on Bloomberg Intelligence, at the end of the day, you don't know what necessarily is going to happen when it comes to these stocks or the businesses, but a sure thing is that the bankers are having a payday.
Yeah, they certainly are.
In a situation such as this.
They certainly are. And it's also been pretty incredible to see these massive companies that brought us these very cable networks now all foraying into streaming services, and then consumers are all kind of getting those packaged up once again. So kind of an interesting shift here.
The Stock Movers Podcast from Bloomberg Radio. Check back with us throughout the day for the latest roundup of companies making news on Wall Street. And for the latest market-moving headlines, listen to Bloomberg Radio live. Catch us on YouTube, Bloomberg.com, and on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app.